Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about In the Heights. It's free on HBO Max for a limited time and think that sometime until mid-July. So we are going to be talking spoilers. And if you don't want to be spoiled, go watch it on HBO Max first, then come back here and join our discussion. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. So we were just talking a little bit about the movie before we jumped into this recording on our Twitch channel, and we were just talking about how it works as a movie and how it can function as a movie coming from something that was a play. I didn't know anything about this movie until watching it, and while I'm watching it, I quickly got the idea that it is based off a play, and the length is reflected in the fact that it is also a play. Because when I first turned it on, I did not understand why it was a 2 hour and 22 minute film.
So I knew it was a play. I know who wrote the play, and that's kind of why I wanted to watch it was because of Lin Manuel Miranda. So I actually kind of seen Hamilton, and I say kind of because I started watching but I didn't finish it because that is also long. um, but yeah, like in terms of the length, it definitely was incredibly long. I definitely felt that. I I don't think like as a story it needed to be that long. I would agree there were a lot of things in there that didn't need to be in there if you were just looking at it from the aspect of it being a movie. There was a lot of
Yeah.
extra fluff in there. But knowing that it came from a play, I forgave it. Because that's how plays are. There's a lot of little extra things in there that they like to put in plays. And also, well, it's Lin Manuel Miranda. What are you going to say?
Yeah, and that's like, and I can understand that too from the standpoint of it being a play. There's I felt bad at one point because while I was enjoying a lot of the songs, I also felt myself feeling the length of the movie and was thinking to myself, I've watched movies this long before without a problem. So I wasn't sure if it was because I didn't have as much of an interest in this movie as I would have liked. I've also gone and seen plays without any issue. So there was just something about the movie's pacing for me that did not work, that made me feel the runtime. And during those moments, I was not enjoying myself as much. But in the moments that I found myself liking, I found myself really liking them. I found myself really enjoying the songs. I really enjoyed the choreography for the scenes. I like these actors. I love the culture. I love the language. It's all these different things that are kind of baked into the whole identity of this film that I really meshed with and enjoyed. But it was just there were these few times in the movie where the pacing just kind of slowed to a halt to me, and I felt myself not having as much of a good time and wondering, asking myself, how much more of this movie do I have left to get through?
Yeah, I definitely felt like that too. But I also kept in mind that during a actual play, there is an intermission. Give yourself a break in the middle of the movie. Um, but I think the other reason why I felt it was long is because the songs were sometimes incredibly long. Like the numbers were very, very long.
They were.
And I definitely felt that. I think this is also why I am not like I feel like people are gonna hate on me. I didn't really like Hamilton.
Oh,
I actually liked In the Heights better because I like the subject matter more. But the reason why I found it difficult to watch Hamilton and In the Heights is because of how much I guess rapping slash hip hop there is, and it's just hard for me to follow. because I don't usually listen to that kind of music. And so to me, it's just like they're talking really fast and they're talking in rhymes, and I don't 100% like, I need the subtitles and I need to like see like what do you.
Hamilton? Did you see Hamilton, or did you watch it on Disney Plus?
I watched it on Disney Plus
Okay, I was gonna say
with
because I also watch
subtitles.
it on Disney Plus. What I was gonna say, I watched this movie with subtitles on as well. I would definitely watch it with subtitles on, and then it allows you to like, enjoy the words that are being said a little bit
Yeah.
more.
I mean, I needed it because it's like it just feels like someone's talking really really fast, and I just cannot like receive. I don't know if it's because like I'm slow or I'm just not used to that, because I don't listen. I mean, even with songs like in general, I don't really know what they're saying, and I need to like look at the lyrics and stuff. That just something about that. And the reason why I like musicals is because usually they take a while to say each word while they're singing it. Um, and so those are the kind of musicals that I enjoy. Um, Usually the songs that I like from musicals are the ones that are slower. So going into like this movie it was fun. I did like the music. There were some parts that were a little challenging for me, and I like needed to like really pay attention to the subtitles so that I could like understand what was happening. But then I'm also like, I don't have to worry about it because they repeat it in the song. They just say the same thing over and over and over again, which is another common thing that they do in musicals that they didn't do in Hamilton. Sorry, I'm talking I guess I'm not really spoiling Hamilton, but just like comparing Miranda's work, I found it easier to digest In the Heights than I did Hamilton because of that. Like because of the repetitive nature of the music. Um,
Yeah, I was wondering. I think it's interesting because so with Hamilton, there's a lot of hip hop rap, and fast talking, and you weren't able to like hear it or follow it as well, and so that's why it kind of took away from your enjoyment of it. But in this one, they're actually literally speaking a different language in some cases where you can't understand what they're saying at all. But the fact that you feel like you can hear the words that are being said, even if it's in Spanish and you know that you don't understand it, because I guess because there's no expectation to understand it, it doesn't take away from your enjoyment as much, I'm guessing.
yeah, I mean, I just trust in that I don't need to understand those words to understand what's happening, and I did feel that. Like I feel like there was enough English for me to know what was happening. So the fact that there were words and there were times where they weren't speaking English was fine. I mean, if anything, it added to it because it gave me a taste of the culture. I
Yeah, this
like
movie is definitely two things to that I took away. It's a celebration of Latin culture, but also New York and the culture of built around New York. And it's one of those things that felt really nice. Um, I'm not Latin, but my family is from New York, and I spent a lot of my time in New York growing up. And I lived out there for 4 years in upstate New York, and then would come down to like the Bronx, where my family is from, and seeing the different and seeing the boroughs and seeing people or hearing people rep for where they're from talking about, hey, I'm from all these different cultures, but I just say I'm from Queens, and just seeing them outside in the parks and walking, it triggered kind of the nostalgia part of my brain and the memory part of my brain where I'm like, wow, I remember being in these areas, being next to these brownstones and like walking through the gate or being in these houses and recognizing the type of like colors that would be on the walls, how like the different apartments felt, and I remembered how they smelt and how that like stuck with me as a child. So that seeing kind of New York celebrated throughout this movie really was one thing that added to my personal enjoyment because it felt like it was taking me back to something that I didn't even realize that I kind of missed. Because I would never think to myself that I'd want to go back and visit New York, especially since most of my family, my mom and friends are in Georgia for the most part. but that made me want to go back and be in New York and be in that environment, even for just a little while, even if I don't like stay, you know?
Yeah, I totally got that vibe. Like I hadn't lived there, but I visited one time, like a couple years ago, and so it definitely felt like my visit there. Like I felt it there, and I would agree that this movie painted a really good picture of what it's like to live there. Or like at least that's what I would imagine. But like from the streets and stuff, and just like everything culture, it just painted a really good picture of these people's lives that I feel are probably really true, um, and very common for people, not just in New York, but in general, for
Sure.
people of color, because I don't think it's just a Latin thing. I feel like I related to the social issues as an Asian person, and I'm sure you probably related to some of those issues as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just the way of living in many ways and the differences with the income levels of the people that are in this story and the struggle in order to try to create the life that they have. This movie is really big on dreams and chasing your dreams. Like if there's anything theme, it's probably that. And like finding that dream and bringing it to you. There's a lot of characters that feel like they have to leave, achieve what they want. And it seems like the movie constantly tries to reiterate this point that you actually don't need to go anywhere to like make your dream excuse me, make your dream a reality. You can absolutely create your dream right where you are, bring it to you, and make it a part of the community that you're already a part of. And I think that that's a very positive message in general because I think all of us or many of us that grew up in certain scenarios, we feel like we want to do is get away and run away and leave home and that's going to answer all the questions. I mean, it's what I did. I went to the other side of the country. But there was something very that resonated very true when there was that one song, I forget the girl's name, Nina, I think it was, and it was basically her saying that I'm home because this is this like I was on these other places, but this is home and it feels different and that feels good.
Mm-hmm. And it's also interesting because she had a part in her song when she was talking about how like they're relying on her because she was the only one that got to get out. Like she
Graduated.
was the first person to go to college, and she got out. And like my first thought was like, oh, no pressure. But I mean, that is kind of the reality of it, where uh, parents that come here from overseas, like first generation, there's a lot of pressure on us to to really make achievements and progressions, and and be able to make an income to support then your parents who did all this stuff to get us here in the first place. It
Right.
really speaks to the American dream, where like that's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to come here, make a better life for your kids, and then your kids are supposed to have opportunities and stuff. But the reality of it is that that's not necessarily true. And like if you really think about it, the reason why our main character, Usnavi, is
Mhm.
able to do everything is because he got the lottery ticket. Like
Right.
he was about to bounce, like to leave the U.S. because it's easier in the Dominican
Dominican
Republic,
Republic.
and it's just like a nicer life. Like almost like he was giving up on the American dream because it was not doing very well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And although he did take that money, and didn't he use it wasn't he using it to try to help his friend who was a dreamer, the kid, forget the kid's name. Um, and I was and like that was cool too because I remember thinking to myself, because it pops up a lot now where you wonder when certain political messages come up in movies. You wonder how heavy handed they're gonna feel. Is it gonna feel like it's a part of the movie, or is it gonna feel like they're just trying to beat you over the head with something, even if it's something you agree with? And I felt like the way when they first brought up the whole like they were gonna go to a DACA rally, I was wondering. I was like, okay, how political is this about to get when they get there? We like what is this going to be? And then it serves a story purpose where that is at that rally is where you find out that what they're talking about absolutely means something to this character because this character is undocumented. And the way that is handled in that scene is beautiful to me. It's very well done. It caught me by surprise, and just the dialogue where the kid is saying, "Oh, I knew I couldn't get a license, but college, that's something else." And then that scene is also contextualized very well because he's a kid that can't go to college, and here's this girl who dropped out of college and now and they're next to each other and they have different problems, and it's not to say one is worse than the other, but their problems are theirs, and so how can they solve it? And it kind of gets her to even think about her life a little differently, which is why she makes her choice later on in the movie. So if it's not clear, that's like my favorite scene in the movie. I think that scene's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack in this movie. I mean, like, yes, the main theme I definitely think is like having dreams and following your dreams. But there's so much stuff in here. Like even from they were talking about how like your job. She was talking about labor of love versus survival, and that it kind of circles back to like if you do what you love, then it's not really a job. But then it's
Yeah.
also really hard to find that opportunity in general. So like there's just it's another dream, right? Like that's the dream, is to do what you love and not just have to survive. But sometimes you just have to do what you need to do to survive. Um,
And the movie's very balanced in that because the father says something to that effect, right? The father, because the girl tells a story about how she was discriminated against, or how she was at this she was at school and someone handed her the the waiter tray or something and said, "Hey, I ordered something else." And then the father, what he says is that there's absolutely nothing wrong with waiting tables, and there's also nothing wrong with getting a degree. And I thought, like, because in that scene, obviously, is her trying to tell her father just like how she was discriminated against or why she felt so alone. But I did like the fact that the father wasn't trying to demean the work of other people in that scene. It's like everyone's got to do what they got to do, and there's nothing wrong with what you choose as long as it is what you want to do, and you're happy.
yeah. Um, I mean, sorry, I'm just gonna talk about something else.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Uh-oh.
mean, just because there's just a lot to touch on, in terms of social issues. There was another part with shoot, what's her name, Vanessa, and she's like trying to get an apartment, like she wants to be a designer and everything. Like that's just another, like we're artists, we want to be artists and stuff, but we know how hard that life is, and she somehow has like enough money but not enough backing to
Yeah, she doesn't have a co-signer.
yeah,
It
to
sounds like her parents are gone or something like that. Yeah.
yeah, and so she can't get an apartment in a nicer neighborhood because she doesn't have enough. Um, and then there was this scene where she's meeting with a realtor, and that this other couple walks in, and she's an individual, she's a one person, and then you have this couple, and they're not Latin. I'm just gonna say they're not Latin. And they are looking like they're gonna get the place because they have the face of
They have the look.
success wealth, and those are literally only how do you say it? Not Latin people.
You're trying to be really, you're trying to be really safe for you too.
um, Basically in the whole movie, and
Yeah,
that says like that resonated a lot in me because it's really true. Like it's harder to get things as a person of color just because we are people of color. And it has nothing to do with the fact that we are people of color, but it has very much to do with where we come from and the things that we have, the things that we were not born with, and
the things,
they
the
didn't
things that it
say
took.
any of that in the
Right,
movie, but they said all of that in the movie from just
right.
showing us that.
It's very well done because of the fact that they say it without expressly saying it, and there is that kind of focus on, maybe it's not strictly because she is Latin and the people that are in the house that are going to get the house are not, but it is tied to the fact that because she is Latin and her family hasn't had as long of a time or hasn't had as much of an opportunity to establish the amount of wealth that would be needed for her to get this place. And that is directly tied to how she looks, where she comes from, where her family comes from, and the opportunities that they were able to have based off of the limited time that they were there, or even based off of what people were willing to do for them, considering that their family did not have a certain look or did not have the wealth that was required to do some of these things. So yeah, it's amazing that the movie is able to handle that. And there's another real scene where when the daughter Nina is talking to her father and says to him that the difference with her going to college versus when her father came there was that there was a whole Latin community that was willing and ready to support him. But when she goes across the country to California, she's by herself and she doesn't have that same community. And that is also a very real feeling I feel that I've seen growing up and that I've noticed the difference between having a supportive community and being somewhere where that same community isn't available and still trying to find a way to make it. And so, as somebody who's also lived in that kind of scenario, that also stuck out as very poignant and real to me. And I like the fact that the movie was able to kind of bring up these different viewpoints and have these characters kind of discuss them.
Yeah, it's very true. Like, community is very important because you kind of find your strength sometimes from, hearing other people tell you and support you and agree with you that what you need and how you choose to live your life it makes sense. And when there's something that happens where, like, she basically got searched, if she, in that, if there was a community of people, they would stand together and they would be like, no, you can't do that. Like, that's unfair. Um, and it's just a lot of commentary there. There's a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
social,
Or
social.
at the very least, if she had a community, she would have had someone she could have felt comfortable talking to, because that is also something that means a lot. It's not always just having somebody that's going to like stand behind you and protest. Sometimes it's just as simple as I need to talk to somebody who is going to understand where I'm coming from. And sometimes people, when they belong to different cultures, they may not fully understand the ramifications of what a situation can feel like or even what it looks like. But when it's somebody that does come from a similar background and is within that, community, you have somebody that can at least tell you that you're not crazy, and that cannot be understated how valuable that is for anybody, any group, any marginalized group, any person, even if you're a nerd or interest, like having people that come from similar backgrounds and can understand where you're coming from and hear what you're saying and know that you are not crazy is absolutely immeasurable when it comes to value.
Yeah, and like there are times where like I myself have been afraid to say things because I wasn't sure if, like you said, if I was crazy, and I half expected people to tell me that I was after telling them, uh, and if I didn't have that community, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah,
But also, like, just the fact that, like, if there was a community there, there probably wouldn't have been a search.
that too. That too.
Because, when there's more faces, there's no target.
Hmm. Yeah, it at least becomes a little harder to target.
Yeah.
um, so, no, like I, and that's another reason why we talked about The Conjuring before this, and we were talking about this. Like I did like this movie more than The Conjuring, but I there there were things in this movie, like I was saying at the start, that where I felt a disconnect, and it's more related to the pacing of it, where I felt myself not being as interested in what was happening. But when the things like that we just talked about were coming up, and when I was hearing certain songs, even if they were long, I might have gotten a little tired as they continued. But generally, I like the music, I like the culture, I like the celebration of all the above, and it felt like a very fun movie in those moments. I just think that personally for me, I probably could have dealt with it being a little shorter because it made getting to those moments feel like kind of a chore at times. But in general, I think the movie is very well done, and the characters are very well handled.
I agree. There's just so much, like I said, there's so much to unpack. There are so many things. If it weren't that long, I would probably want to watch it again so I could try to pick up on more stuff that's in there. Because there is, like, a lot of detail. There's a lot of stuff in there, even within the songs. It's not just all, like, razzle dazzle stuff. There are things that happen in between, little fine details. Um, Something that stuck out to me was when there was a blackout, um, they were singing "We Are Powerless," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Wow, what a cool way to use the backdrop as a way to also say, like, how they feel, like we are powerless."
Right. And they use that also for the later parts of the movie where once they right before they get the power back, it's like, yeah, so what? You are powerless. What are you gonna do about it? And like I kind of liked that that the Usnavi was not one person that was going to lay down and accept his fate. He was somebody that said, you know what? Yes, this is the situation, but there's no point in us moping about it. We are strong. We actually are powerful, and we get to celebrate that. And that song is also just amazing because it goes between all these different Latin cultures, whether it be Cuban or Puerto Rican or Dominican, and that celebration is really amazing, especially in New York because you constantly are moving through these different communities within the New York space, so it's really even more poignant to like see all these communities represented as one community in this movie, and I absolutely love that.
Yeah. I think my favorite part of the movie, though, is when we find out how Usnavi got his name.
U.S. Navy.
U.S. Navy.
That's gonna be my son's name. I wish they should have put the year just to like they should have given the year as a middle name or something. So, yeah. No, like at the end of the day, uh, overall fun movie. There's one more thing I was trying to remember as far as what something that happened in the movie. Um, Let me just look real quick. I feel like, oh, that was what I was gonna say. When I first started the movie, before I knew it was a play, my first note was reminds me of when, like I said, I didn't know even that Lin-Manuel Miranda had anything to do with this movie before going in, and then hearing it and being like, this seems like something he would write. But my first note was, reminds me of Baby Driver meets Hamilton.
Nice.
So,
I thought you knew that he wrote. Okay, I guess
I didn't even read the description before starting the movie, so
maybe.
it came as a surprise.
My bad. I'll let you know next time.
Oh no, it's all good. I had more fun that way. And then like seeing him actually in the movie, it was even further confirmation. It was just like the style of the writing of the songs. Like, there's no way this isn't Lin-Manuel Miranda, and if it isn't him, then oh my gosh, he needs to sue because someone is stealing his
His
style.
style.
But and then one thing we didn't bring up, the director of this movie, same director as Crazy Rich Asians.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was surprised to see that. I thought that Miranda directed it, but he was just kind of up there like consulting and participating and I wonder if his role, because he was in the movie, but I wonder if that was actually in the musical or if they added it so that he could have a small part in it.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was in the musical, but in the context of the movie, it felt added. His scene was the one scene because his character doesn't really, is not really a part of the main cast and doesn't really interact with them
Yeah.
like that. So his scene was the one scene that really stuck out to me as feeling tacked on or feeling like it was something that could have been removed without hurting the story of the movie. But
Yeah, it was like a big cameo.
yeah, but I'm glad that he got to get his singing on, and that I don't know if did you see the after credit sequence because he had an after credit sequence at the end of the movie.
I heard about it, but I didn't. I didn't stick to. After the movie was over, I was like, okay, I'm done. And then I heard
it was
later.
just a little bit.
I
Yeah,
have to
a
go
little
back
bit
and
of
watch it. Don't
reprisal.
spoil it for me.
Okay,
I'm gonna go back and watch it.
gotcha. Well, we're running up on time. We've been talking for a little while now. Is there anything else any closing last minute thoughts you wanted to bring up before we get out of here?
Uh, just real quick, I thought was interesting. Was the hat where he was wearing the hat that he got from his father, and then he passes it down to his son. I thought that was a really nice thing that was added. You know, just like it's gonna go on through generations.
Wait, he passes on to. He has a daughter though, right?
Oh yeah, sorry, to his daughter, to his kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, make sure there wasn't another kid there that I wasn't noticing.
There
was
were a
his
lot
kid.
of kids there, and I didn't really register that I wasn't sure if they were all his kids or until like the very end. They don't really tell you. So
Yeah, she said at one point father, and that's when you get the feeling that it's a time. Well, you kind of get the feeling it's a time skip anyway. But I loved seeing the kids running around in the fire hydrant, the water from the fire hydrants. We used to do that when I would go and visit New York. I legitimately remember those moments on those hot summer days and hoping that they would that something would break or that I think in some cases some people would come by and actually loosen it so that you could play with the water in the streets. And seeing that, I was like, okay, yeah, that's clearly something that is still happening, but it felt very real to me, and that was a nice extra little bit of nostalgia for me. I really appreciated that.
very nice.
So, all right then. But I think that's gonna be it for us on this. So, did you guys see In the Heights? Have you seen the play? What did you think about it? Did you enjoy it? Did it feel long to you, or do you feel like it's just the right length and that they shouldn't have cut anything? And therefore, this is. And did they cut things from this movie that we didn't even know because neither Cheryl nor I have seen the play? But whatever you thought, comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I've been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we will see you all next time.